Hello and welcome to A Bettor Morning, presented by Rival Fantasy. I'm Heather Klein. Rival Fantasy is the all-in-one fantasy sports platform. Sheesh, Monday morning, guys. Let's welcome today's panel. Host of Her Story in the Making and Britt's Fantasy Blitz, and co-host of Lightning Round, Britt Flynn. Award-winning host, the fantasy exec, Corey Parson. Fantasy Alarm lead NFL analyst, host of Fantasy Fiasco, and new dad, Andrew Coop Cooper. Welcome, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome back, Coop.
What's up? Thanks for having me. Although I did like Matt Deutsch's Coop impression on the show the other day. I think he did
good. You got to see
great job. Yeah, that was fantastic. The double sunglasses, that's the nice touch.
Attention to detail, right?
Yeah, exactly. He knows what he's doing. But I'm back and I'm ready to rock the house.
All right. Well, let's get to it then. The Washington Commanders have a new owner in Josh Harris and co., a new OC and Eric Bieniemy, and a different starting QB with Sam Howell. Ron Rivera enters his fourth season as head coach in Washington and is looking for his first winning season. The Commanders are plus 1,600 to win the NFC East. Last season, they were in last place at 8-8. This season, the win total odds are at 6.5. What are your expectations this season, and would you take the over or under in win totals? Coop, you're up first.
Yeah, so honestly, even though I'm not a Sam Howell guy, and I get in trouble on Twitter every time I say that, I think this team can do better than 6-5, and that's because they have Jacoby Brissett. They have a guy that is above, in my opinion, above average as a quarterback in this league and can take a team to the playoffs. I mean, look at what he did with the Browns last year. Amari Cooper had arguably his best season ever. This team has the weapons across the board. I mean, they've got two good running backs. They have Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas. There's no reason that this team can't win 7 games here, even though I think in the grand scheme of things, the quarterback of the future isn't on this team. I think after this season, the new ownership is going to want to put their stamp on this team and get their own quarterback, but I see no reason this team can't win 7 games. So I'm not going to bet on them to win the division, but I will take the over on 6.5.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over on 6.5 as well. I actually like the Commanders coming into this season. They're not going to win the NFC East, but I think they can be a playoff team in the NFC. But a couple of things got to break right, and obviously a couple of things got to go their direction. First of all, Washington is excellent in the trenches. You got guys like Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, mentioned Logan Thomas. Chase Young's supposed to be there, but looks like he's on that Trey Lance path. But the only, and I listen, I'm a Sam Howell guy too. I like Sam Howell. I think he's going to compete. I think he's going to have them in games. To me, what's this guy's name? Jacoby Brissett is a game manager, right? And not a great one. And I think Howell can give a little bit more excitement. But here's the problem in Washington. Ron Rivera has been an NFL coach for 13 seasons. He's only had a winning record of 3 of those, and none of them was in Washington. The last time Ron Rivera had a winning record was 2017 in Carolina. This guy doesn't win. That's problematic.
Yeah, that's part of the reason I'm not high on the Commanders at all. With their new ownership, I really wouldn't be surprised if they tanked, but it's not even that. The schedule itself is actually pretty difficult with them going against the AFC East, and then the rest of the NFC East is pretty stacked. I'm not sold on Sam Howell at all, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jacoby Brissett took over. If they do hit that win total, though, it's going to be because of their defense, but even that has some question marks, like Corey brought up with Chase Young being on the Trey Lance path. If Young can stay healthy, I like their odds a lot more, but he has to prove that he can. I'm really hard-pressed finding 7 wins on the schedule, and when I break this down, I'm seeing them finish with 6 wins at max.
What I find interesting about and I think Britt kind of hit on it, is this Josh Harris group. This is the same group of the Philadelphia 76ers. Trust the process. And tanking was a big part of what they do. But I think they could have learned their lesson, because I saw when Doc Rivers said when he got to Philadelphia, they had lost so much that losing became acceptable. So maybe he learned his lesson from that. But this Josh Harris group, I think, they're not against tanking.
Yeah, in the NFL, it seems the formula is the Dolphins. The Dolphins almost did it right, except for the part where the owner was like kind of trying to pay the coach to lose. The Lions are doing exactly right, where you have to have the GM in the tanking mindset, but the coach needs to remain in the winning mindset because you got to build that winning culture, like Corey's talking about. But when you have a GM like Brad Holmes that comes in and knows that you let Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones and Matt Prater and all those guys walk, that's how you set your team up to lose while not changing the culture. This team, I think they're too good on paper to lose without getting the coach and the coordinator and everybody on board with losing. So that's why on this one I'm taking the over. But I do think, as I mentioned, that this new ownership is going to want to put their own stamp and change a lot up next season. But this season, I don't know. I think they're just going to be scrapping their way to 7 or 8.
Yeah, I can't find 7 or 8 on this schedule. I'm looking at it, and I think the Cardinals, Bears, Falcons, potentially
They got 2 wins. They got 2 wins versus the Cowboys on there.
No, they don't.
I was being charitable. I was being charitable when I found that 6th win by giving them Week 18 in a meaningless game because Dallas has already sewn up a playoff spot.
Oh,
and
wow.
Giving them a charitable Week 18 win against Dallas. And I'm being completely unbiased here. I legitimately think that's what's going to happen. Well, look at the past couple of years. That's exactly what's happened over and over again. Like Week 18 is a meaningless game.
I'm surprised you're not saying that the Cowboys' backups are so good that they'll still whoop the Commanders.
Coop, I missed you.
No, I remember watching that game with my son last year, who was a Commander fan. They had a good time with that one, but I was telling him this is a meaningless game. So they do win those meaningless ones down the stretch. But I think they're going to be competitive this year. I really do. I would. Listen, last year, if Kayvon Thibodeau didn't have the game of his life, they would have beat the Giants and been a playoff team.
But I think, I don't know, the Sam Howell situation, the A-Dot with him.
Why you don't like Sam Howell? Sam Howell can play, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
He's very meh. Very meh.
Slow, small, mobile quarterbacks. That's a dangerous game. Heather, you with us? We might have lost Heather here. Britt, you got the next question? Do you want to take over, be the new Heather?
Yeah, I guess we did lose Heather. So it's August, so you know what time it is. Obviously, it's fantasy football draft time. So let's talk a little bit about handcuffing. When it comes to running backs, do you guys use draft capital to secure your handcuff for somebody like Christian McCaffrey, who can be kind of injury prone, or do you not spend up to get them? And Corey, you're first.
I'll go first with this one right here. So it really depends on the draft, the mood. And one of my things is you can never predict the draft. I was in the draft yesterday and I got Justin Jefferson at 1-3. So you can never really predict the draft. Now, what I will say is this. Like, if I draft Javonte Williams, I'm going to get Sam P. Ryan. It really depends on the back and who the backup is. But I don't want to time myself into getting the handcuff. I remember years ago when Arian Foster, who was great, but he would always get hurt, his handcuff was Ben Tate. One year it got to the point where you had to take Arian Foster in like the 2nd and Ben Tate in like the 3rd. And that's what I want to avoid. So I am not anti-handcuff. I'm cool with it, but I don't think, I'm not going to go out my way to look for the handcuff. But my buddy Jeff Mann say if you leave the draft without your handcuff, you didn't draft the team correct. But Jeff Mann's never beat me in anything, though.
Corey throwing shots out here this morning.
Let's go.
Shout out to my man Jeff Mann.
The thing with a handcuff is that I'm not using high draft capital on one unless that handcuff has standalone value in the starter's absence. And generally, I kind of like to be the bad guy and take someone else's handcuff. For someone like McCaffrey, I don't think that any of these backs behind him have the same value. I think that they would go to more of a committee approach. When I'm looking at a handcuff, I'm looking for someone who will have the same or very similar role as the starter. So now that the Alvin Kamara situation has been more or less resolved, I'm looking at Jamal Williams and Kendre Miller with a lot more confidence as a handcuff option. I like Jerome Ford if Nick Chubb goes down. The bottom line is I don't really want to waste a roster spot on someone who won't fall into that same role.
Yep, I got an article coming out on this exact topic on Thursday over at Fantasy Alarm, and my policy is not to predict injury, but to account for it. So I'm like Corey in the sense that I'll draft Samaje Perine, but I only draft guys that have standalone value. Some players, their range of outcomes is like this with an injury booster kind of on top of it, right? So Samaje Perine, he is a startable player regardless, but if Javonte Williams doesn't come back and start right away, then I have a guy that I can start all year. Another example would be a guy like Dallas Goedert, right? He's a guy I can start and I trust him. If one of those wide receivers gets hurt, now his ceiling, his upside is much bigger. So I'll take guys if they have standalone value. I'm not going to draft a guy that's not going to start for me unless someone gets hurt. A guy like Elijah Mitchell, you talked about Christian McCaffrey in the question. Why not draft a guy like that? Because he gets 10 touches a game and could be an upside league winning back if the starter gets hurt.
Because he's injury prone himself.
Crazy injury prone himself.
Like stupid injury prone.
But he at least fits the bill of, like you look at his injury history, it's insane, right? For arms, legs, concussion, everything. But still, 10 touches a game, I don't know. He could have that standalone value. That's the criteria that matters to me. I'm not going to draft a guy that doesn't play unless a starter gets hurt, like Alexander Madison used to be that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What about, so CMC, I don't see a handcuff there. Eckler, I don't see a handcuff. Bijan, is it Algier?
I think it almost has to be. That's another really good one because we saw last year he can handle that every down workload. He can be a factor in the receiving game. I definitely like Algier, and I've been taking a lot of him.
And there's a very real possibility that Algier himself has standalone value. I mean, that team, if they do, they're going to run a lot, right? They brought all the pieces back to run a ton. They brought in Johnny Smith. They brought back the fullback Keith Smith. Like that team could just once again pound the rock.
I'm fading Barkley, so I'm not looking at him. Najee, Jalen Warren is a player I like a lot. You can get him late. Jalen Warren has kind of got some Tony Pollard to him. He has that big playability, especially out the passing game. It's going to be interesting to see if they use Jalen Warren this year.
Now, I'll tell you what, Corey, because you look at the metrics for Jalen Warren, his yards per route run, all those, it's all great. I pulled it up. I was like, let's see if this guy has a standalone role. And unfortunately, the numbers basically show that it's kind of like Zeke and Pollard, where Najee Harris, when you sort by 2-minute drill, like last 3 minutes in the second, fourth, and overtime, Najee Harris got every single one of those targets. He got 11 targets. Jalen Warren, 0. So he's got to carve himself out a role this year to have that upside. I was rooting for it, but we need a change for Jalen Warren to have that upside.
Look, you don't have to pay for him, though. You feel what I'm saying? So it makes it a little bit different.
A little better, yeah.
And then Josh Jacobs. Who is Josh Jacobs' handcuff?
Zamir White, I guess.
Zam White. You remember? Well, this is irrelevant, but in 2020, I was working for SI, and the editors sent us. This is the summer of 2020. The editors sent us a email saying that when we talked about fantasy football, we couldn't use handcuff. We had to use shared backfield. And I was like, y'all better not email me nothing else.
No. That happens like every year. Like then, the same thing. At one point somebody said you can't say buy, and I'm like, what do I say in my auction league?
yeah. Roster.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
To help you with your draft strategy, get your 7-day trial of Fantasy Alarm's All-Pro subscription and get the Fantasy Football Draft Guide and Cheat Sheet free. Go to fantasyalarm.com/draft. How do you define a great sports franchise? By their success, being called a dynasty, the venue and food offerings, the money value of the franchise. What team do you think is the best sports franchise? Britt, you're up first.
Well, I think you've got to look at a bunch of different factors, right? You've got to look at the history. You've got to look at their success. You've got to look at the market value because it's an indicator of how fans view the team. But I think something that wasn't on the list was that you've also got to look at how much other franchises and fans hate them, because people don't waste their energy hating on a sucky team. That's why the Dallas Cowboys are the best team. They're the most valuable. People love to hate them. The media can't get away from talking about them. What Jerry Jones has done to market and make money off this franchise since purchasing it is genius. The logo's iconic, and the venue set the standard for new NFL stadiums. Everyone wanted to beat Jerry World, and if everyone wants to beat you, you know that you're the best.
Yeah, that's it. It really, it's all about ownership. It's about leadership. It trickles down from the top. You saw it with a team like the Patriots, right? With the Sullivans, they didn't quite care. They were pinching pennies. Bob Kraft went out of his way as a fan to acquire the team, basically by a hostile takeover, and that's his life. And it translates. You can see it. He went out and got Bill Belichick. He let him bring in Ernie Adams, do his thing. And you see it with the great franchises, George Steinbrenner, right? Eddie DiBartolo. Eddie DiBartolo was the guy that invented the move of getting a private plane to, entice free agents to come. You want to have a guy that not only knows how to pick the right people, but can attract them to come to the team. That's how you have success, and it trickles down. And that's why great franchises stay great.
You were right there, Coop. You were right there, but you didn't say the word. Culture. And that's what it's about. It's about culture. And it starts at the top with the ownership. So let's go with the best. The Pittsburgh Steelers, the culture is fantastic. The standard. It starts with the ownership. It comes down through the executives. And then you have the CEO as the head coach, who's a Hall of Fame head coach. The team is never bad. They always win. That's not because they have the most talented team. That's because they have the best culture. They run the best organization. Let's look at the Boston Celtics, another team draped in culture. The Miami Heat, it's in the damn name, Heat culture. Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, the same, the standard, year after year. Teams like the San Antonio Spurs, the New England Patriots, the Golden State Warriors. These are all teams that's built with culture. Now, here's where let's go back. Let's go to the 3 box because I do have something to say about America's team. As much as I love America's team, I worry about the culture because I think the head coach has to be the leader. And in Dallas, whenever a player has a problem, he can go above the head coach and go right to the owner. I was listening, what's my man name? Ed Warder. Was it Ed Warder? Todd Archer, one of the Cowboy guys. And he was talking, this was just last week. He was talking about how at practice, one corner you had Stephen Jones doing an interview. The other corner, you had Jerry Jones doing the interview. Mike McCarthy was so focused on what was going on over there that he couldn't run practice. That's the problem in Dallas. It's not that Jerry doesn't want to win, but he is so big that he kind of ruins the culture.
I mean, I'll tell you one thing Jerry's the best of all time at, and that's sweeping stuff under the rug. I mean, what other team could have a player stab another player with scissors and not miss a single game?
Yeah, and Jerry also has to be the center of attention in everything. That's why he gives these radio interviews every week instead of the actual coach. But, we'll see. It makes it fun.
What he did this year was interesting. Normally he'll come and he'll sit down and he'll talk for the first 25 minutes. Right. This year he just came and sat down and took questions, which was, but you still got Steven on the radio once a week. You got Jerry on the radio once a week. You can't, the players know that they can go above the head coach. I don't like that.
Yeah, I was disappointed by Jerry not running his mouth like usual. Usually he comes out and just tells us everything we need to know for fantasy football. Last year in May, he was telling us Michael Gallup wasn't going to be ready in September, and that ended up being right. So I actually like it when these owners come out and tell us what the hell is going on. That's the one thing with the Patriots is you never get any meaningful information out of these press conferences, ever.
And that's due to Belichick.
Belichick.
That is a situation where the coach is.
Yeah. And I will say, I as a Patriots fan, I've always, you can't like the Steelers, but I've always loved Mike Tomlin, man. And that's saying the standard is the standard. That team is the standard. But that's saying it's so good.
You even look at the Patriots when they won the championship in the 2014 season. The Patriots came into camp on the first day. Bill Belichick told them our main thing, the thing that's going to make us the best this year, is our red zone defense. And they practice red zone defense every single day. When they got into the playoffs, the Baltimore Raven game, the Ravens driving to win that game, interception in the red zone. Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl, interception in the red zone. That right there is that's the standard. That's culture.
It's over preparedness. That's what Belichick does better than anybody else. You see the games, if a chance of rain, he puts the ball. Every ball is sitting in a bucket of water with soap in there. You see, they're going to play against TJ Watt. They have guys out there with brooms in their hands trying to simulate what this guy's going to be like. They overdo it, and that's why they're over prepared. And that's how you get an interception at the goal line in the Super Bowl, because that doesn't happen without tape, film, practice. They knew that was coming. That wasn't an accident, that play.
Oh, you know what the main thing it was? That Bill Belichick never panicked, and he never called a timeout. And Pete Carroll was waiting for the timeout, I believe, to change the play. It was just fantastic. Great job. Yep. I'm jealous.
Did we lose Heather again?
No, not at all. Now I'm here. I'm not gone. Now it's time for Dealer's Choice. Give us your bet of the day. It could be on any topic and any sport. Coop, what do you got?
Yeah, so I got a bit of a dealer's choice here. As you guys know, I lean into the Vegas sportsbook when I do my fantasy football. I've got an article on it already. I'm going to do another one towards the season. This one is a dealer's choice that you can use on your side. But I go through these and I see, where does it not match up with ADP? And one of the players, Dallas Goedert, his over-under for touchdowns is only 3.5. And when you go and look at his career average, it's 3.8. That's what he averages for touchdowns. So this guy that everyone thinks is a huge red zone threat actually doesn't really get a ton of end zone targets. He's only had 8 over the last 3 years. Mike Gesicki had 8 just last year. So me personally, I'm actually willing to bet that over on 3.5 because I think Goddard's a good player, but I'm kind of taking him off my board at ADP. Not really willing to bet on this guy if the experts of all experts don't think he's going to be scoring touchdowns this year.
It's my turn. I'm sitting here looking at my app right now, trying to figure out something to wager on. I want to give you all the college football one today. I don't know if I did this already, but we're going to go ahead and fade. I'm not only like a hater, but we're going to go ahead and fade Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers, and we're going to take under 10 wins for this team. This number is ticked down from 10.5 and under 10 right now. BetMGM, you can get plus money at plus 110. This might push because I think they're a 10-win team, but why not take a shot? I just look at it. I don't think the quarterback is as good as everybody's wrapping him up to be in Klubnik. So obviously Clemson is still going to be elite defensively, but I think they're going to struggle to score again. I think they probably lose. They'll lose Florida State, they'll lose Carolina, and they'll lose one more game.
Well, I hope you're wrong, Corey, because I took Klubnik as my college football quarterback in the FSGA college draft, but we'll see about that. So I'm going to go Austin Riley over 1.5 hits at plus 170 on BetMGM against the White Sox today. Riley has a .634 slugging percent over the last 10 games. And today he's facing Osvaldo Bido, who has a 5.12 ERA on the season and a 12 ERA over the past 7 days. Yes, 12. Riley has 118 hits in 109 starts this season, and he's been coming on lately, even despite a stinker against the Cubs. So Atlanta is far and away the best team in the National League right now, and they're looking to widen that gap into the fall. I also like Riley's RBI prop at over 0.5 an RBI at plus 110, but I'm taking the better odds and betting on his slugging to win the hit prop.
What time's that game, Britt?
That's a good question.
Let's say if it's during the day, I might follow you on that. I love
that daytime baseball action.
Daytime baseball action. I love that. Yeah, Corey, I wanted to ask you because I'm thinking about it and I can't pull the trigger. What do you think about Colorado's line set at 3.5 wins with prime time coming into Coach Prime? Last year they won 1 game, but I'm just thinking about the culture change, everything we talked about. Is that something you're willing to do? 3.5.
Yeah, he likes the team. I think I would take the over on 3.5. I think right there in the beginning of the season with Nebraska and Colorado State early, I think you grab those 2 wins. I think you get Stanford, and I think you can pull off Arizona as well, and maybe even Arizona State. I think you can get to 5, 6 would make you bowl eligible, but I would take the over. This one opened up at 2.5. That's crazy. And it pushed up to 3.5 right now. Listen to this. They have the biggest liability to win the championship. That's how crazy it is. A team with the win total at 3.5 is the biggest liability to win the championship. That's the Coach Prime effect. Interesting. I don't want to speculate, but I think that I don't know, Deion Sanders may not have any toes on that right foot, but he plans to run out with the team the first week of the season. So that would right there would be
that'll get him fired up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, when it comes to betting, you know, obviously we're in it to win it. We're in it to make money, but every once in a while you got to play some wagers that are fun. And betting on Coach Prime and that one, and you're going to get a lot of primetime games with that too. So fun ones to watch. So I think I'm gonna get in. I think I'm on board with Coach Prime. Britt, Coach Prime or no? Are you in?
Yeah, I mean, he got a bunch of transfers, and you know, Colorado did squeeze out a couple of wins, even with a pretty bad team last year. I just have to issue a correction real quick. I said the White Sox. They're playing the Pirates. I'm very sleepy.
What are we betting on, Britt? What are we betting on?
We're betting on Riley. The bet stands. I just said the wrong team. And the game is at 6:05, by the way, Central.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 6:00. That's my power hour right there. That's when I'm running. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting my tools ready for the evening.
Now that I have a kid, any given moment could be nap time.
Yeah, that's right. You look at that lifestyle now. I just got a text message Evite Coop to my daughter's 13th birthday. So this is what you got coming to you.
Congratulations! Yeah, it's gonna be
exactly. I got
this time of year for sure.
Oh yeah, you're right. It is. Yeah, I went to the draft and we like had the phone. Like, you know, so my brother-in-law actually drove to get me just in case we needed to come back immediately. So that was pretty cool. We did the draft in Atlantic City that year.
Very cool.
That sounds amazing.
You went to Atlantic City, even though you knew your daughter was going to be born any moment.
Luckily, she wasn't born. You know what I'm saying? But she was actually born. I was I came home after a night shift at Sirius XM Fantasy. And then I was woken up a couple hours after I went to sleep. Like, I think we need to go to the hospital. It was cool, good times. You know what I'm saying? But yeah,
good times.
Yeah. It's crazy though.
Sure is, Corey.
That was today's edition of A Bettor Morning. Thank you to Corey, Britt, and new dad, Coop. Make sure you check out Fantasy Fiasco with Andrew Cooper at 1 p.m. and Britt's Fantasy Blitz at 2. And if you missed any of our shows, you can find them all on our YouTube channel and at bettorsports.com. We wish everyone a better day.